Now, I got a little bit carried away. Ange Postecoglou got appointed as the Nottingham Forest manager, and I couldn't help myself. I degened into a little bit more of Nottingham Forest for the Road to Glory series. On the video today, we're going to have a look at how the strategy sits at the moment, the strength and depth of the quality of squad, and what's the next natural step, the next natural progression at this point in the season for any team out there on a budget. At any point in the video, if you do, laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And if you're brand new to Sorare and you've not even opened up your account yet, there's a link in the description of the video that will get you $150, pounds, euros, whatever your currency is, of market credit to go out there and build your roster. The amount of credit you get is linked to the purchases you make on site, so please read the terms and conditions, but it is genuinely the biggest sign up bonus available. Sorare love the content here at Quinny 3001, and that link is exclusive to the channel. It does support me and all the content here, so if you get stuck, if you've got any questions, jump into the comment section as well, of course. And if you're looking for a beginner tutorial based video, you'll also find that in the new to Sorare playlist in the comment in the description of the video as well. But yeah, you can probably tell I'm excited. Let's just get stuck straight into this one, because last time we were on the show, or last time we were on Road to Glory, we had just went into the market and we'd picked up some guys. Now that the transfer window had closed and we'd seen a little bit of proof in the pudding how some teams were shaping up, and we went we bought 2 Aston Villa cards, which with the way Aston Villa are sitting right now, you know, we might be waiting a while for them to kick in perhaps, but we picked up a Mukiele, and you know, not too long thereafter, with all that transfer window stuff in mind, when we seen Ange Postecoglou appointed at Forest, we went and bought a Zinchenko. And then I also found myself going and picking up a Morgan Gibbs-White. And the reason I went and bought this was actually quite interesting, because as a lot of you guys will know, we had the early access reveal ceremony last week where all of the early access cards, or a lot of them, became revealable, and we got this shiny special for this coming for the weekend that we've just left. And that had an interesting impact on the price of cards, because as you can see, Morgan Gibbs-White is now quite comfortably below the £20 mark. This is a guy, and there's a bunch of guys just like him who were maybe priced a lot closer to the £30 mark. But once the early access cards, which look like this, were revealed, the shinies, the shiny cards are the ones that then held that price point. And you then found the non-shiny revealed cards finding a lower price point. So for Morgan Gibbs-White at around 15 quid, he didn't do anything at the weekend to really change that price point with a 33-pointer against Arsenal. But this is a high caliber midfielder. We needed a little bit more midfield reinforcement. And as you guys know, with the likes of Ndoye, Elliot Anderson, Chris Wood, and obviously laterally Zinchenko, we've got like a full Nottingham Forest kind of rig out here to go, which is nice. And, you know, like we've now got a total of 16 cards, which for SO5, five-a-side fantasy football, is a nice little layer of depth. If we can just compare that quickly with La Liga, for example, where we did degen into a few Sociedad cards for my sins, with, again, some of the transfer activity that they had. And we currently have 11 La Liga cards, which for one lineup is plenty. But as you'll know with some of these guys, Saganikov, Jerry Moreno, Yangel, Braze, a lot of these guys are carrying injuries and stuff, so it is still essentially one team running. Going into the weekend, we knew the fixtures were going to be against us, and we were really just crossing our fingers and toes we could catch a decisive or two in the right places. Robin Rofs is living the life of the #1 budget keeper this season. He is kicking ass and taking names. A 91-point score away to Crystal Palace is wild. We really nailed the Mukiele shout again. 75 points from him is incredible. Sadly, Forest losing 3-0 on Ange's debut. Not one goal, not one decisive to be found. Undone as sadly. We did finish on 355 points, only 25 away from streaking. One decisive would have been enough for anyone, except for Robin Rofs. One more decisive for him wouldn't have made enough of a difference. And the backup team didn't get up to much either, 281 points. Nice defence here, but again, it's the other 3 positions that has let us down, sadly. And just to show you La Liga, again, nothing really happened, but Soria beat Harry's Escandel. They won 2-0. The battle of the goalies, the goalie wars, worked in our favour. And again, the rest of the team didn't do too much. 100 points essentially, the thick end of away from streaking. Now, one thing I've tried to make sure I do in this series is keep the names of the teams appropriate to where the Road to Glory situation is. So for the La Liga Road to Glory, that's up to being an $80, or £80, sorry, I should say, Road to Glory situation, which you've already seen the cards we've got. We'll look at the team lineups we've got available for this weekend, thinking about the progression that we're going to be going down in the next evolution in the strategy. And I've yet to update this from adding in Zinchenko and Morgan Gibbs-White. So I wanted to just double check how much they both cost me. But when we get to £60 a depth, it's no longer really depth anymore. It's £60. This originally was 30, 40, £50, which I think for depth is a good price point, especially now the way the market's gone. But when we get up to this kind of price point, 60, and we're about to add on like another 30 quid or something, another 25. This doesn't become depth anymore. This becomes the second lineup, because that's basically where we're sitting at the moment. But the next thing we've got to come to with this is the following game week that we're about to come into. Because we're having 16 players in this strategy, we're using 10 of course for the two primary teams, but we've then got a further 6 that are on the sidelines doing nothing. And if they're not injured or unavailable, they are cards we can use. And ideally, we want to get them into a team. And the reason I'm bringing that up, we've got a lovely example of this in my rare setup, which just for the purposes of example, I want to highlight here. But when you're building your gallery up in this streak environment, in this in-season environment, the optimal situation is you've got 4 teams that are good, right? You want to start off like we've done and like everyone does with making one team as good as possible, and then it's a natural process of, you know, the more strong options you bring in for team 1, strong options end up in team 2, and the trickle down effect happens from there. And if we look at the 4 teams that I've got in season here for Celtic, you can see that team 4 especially, as well as, you know, team 3's got stronger now, hasn't it? But if you look at the likes of Sorare being the defender who was unknown to start, Talisca was a wee bit sketchy, only brought in a 47. It's really like 2 teams of strength, isn't it, with 2 depth-like outfits. But the one that hit the streak for me this week was the 3rd team, was the depth, as it were, was the reserves, as I've titled them here. And every strategy will get to the point where you've acquired so many good options from winning cards, from seeing opportunities in the market and whatever, where you can have those other entries going out there. And hey, if they pop off, they pop off. Or eventually over time, can they become a credible contender to maybe be in the sniff of being D1 capable, i.e. it's good players that can score good points. Now if we look at game week 11, which will be the next game week we've got for the Road to Glory series, like I mentioned already, we've got 16 players for 2 teams, which is more than enough. So if we just have a wee sketch through this, we might alter it closer to the deadline, but Robin Roths at home at Aston Villa is definitely going to be our number 1 goalkeeper pick. Mukiele and him feels like a golden pair that we'll be keeping together for ages. Elliot Anderson has been our solid man. Our best striker option is Dan and Doy, and then we're probably putting Gibbs White next to Elliot Anderson, aren't we? So basically a little bit of painting by numbers for team 1. Same lineup that we had out last weekend against Arsenal. It was really the Forest attack that let us down. This time they're away to Burnley, so I think this has actually got a really strong potential this week to really smash. Our only other goalkeeper option is Jordan Pickford, who's away to Liverpool. Now Pickford is a great goalkeeper, but Liverpool is probably the hardest fixture. Liverpool away is probably almost certainly the hardest away fixture right now. He can get some AA, but I think we can guarantee we're not getting a clean sheet here. So can Pickford bring in like a 48, a 52? That's the best thing we can really hope for that. And that really caps this team right away. It's part of the nature of the beast, the name of the game, where not every fixture is going to be great for you. But we only have 2 goalkeeper options, and for the amount of players we've got, and as you've seen already with the first team and you'll see with the second team, we do have a nice variance on where players are and where we can try and catch a good fixture here or there. But the goalkeeper is the one area so far we're still very restricted. I would say Zinchenko would be my first pick for defender here. I expect him to play under Ange, and I think he'll do really well. The midfield is a weird one because Oscar Bob didn't start at the weekend there in the Manchester derby, and I think that might happen again against Arsenal, or maybe it won't. I don't know. It's hard to think with Burnley in Champions League being in and around it, but he's certainly dodgy, isn't he? We know Harvey Elliott will play, and I think it's quite certain Diarra will play, and I've been really disappointed with his scoring. I thought he would have got more decisives, but again, away at Palace, it was 0-0. It was probably a bit more of a different game in hand, wasn't it? So I think I would take him as my mid. We've got Chris Wood as a striker, again, away to Burnley. Very good situation for him. And then the final spot here, I'm probably looking at Reinildo. So half Sunderland, half Forest, which is cool. And who would you captain out of this? I'd probably captain Zinchenko just on the fingers crossed, like, screw it, you know? But that means we've then got Sancho, Elliott, Bob, and O'Brien. All 3. Now, is Sancho going to start? Let's just say it's unlikely, same as Oscar Bob. But if we get another goalkeeper in, we will be able to get them into a team, number 1. If we get another goalkeeper in, we might be able to get a better goalkeeper into this team than maybe Jordan Pickford. And if we just confirm that, just to put it on ice at the moment. Now, we've got 2 classic goalkeepers. And the main reason for that is at the beginning of the season, everyone is as expensive as they're going to be. Goalkeepers are more expensive than defenders and midfielders and so on. especially in the in-season format. But now that we're 5 or so games into the season, whatever it is at this point, game week 11 will be essentially match day 6 of the Premier League. So yeah, we're 5 games in. The question now becomes, what is the price of an in-season goalkeeper? Now, we've did some lovely content on the channel recently looking at undervalued players, surprise picks, budget bosses. That's a nice term, actually. I'm going to use that more often. In the Premier League especially, and that's with the view of, you know, just making nice content for everyone in the community here, but also to keep our finger on the pulse with this road to glory strategy for where the next options, where the next avenues for success could be, where the next steps are in the evolution. Now, if we look at the in-season Premier League goalkeeper secondary market, so we're buying these from other Sorare managers, it should be, excluding if you have market credits or you can really snipe an auction, the cheapest place to be picking cards up. Now, I am thinking still in this budget mindset where I really want any of the goalkeepers to be less than really £25-30. So let's see what we get for £25 as a ceiling on the price and who is available. So Signing Lamans has just moved from 23 to 26. So I had to just move the gauge a little bit there because I think he is worth having in the reckoning. Man United are horrible, we know that, right? But he could get a lot of saves. You know, he could live that same life as the likes of Kelleher, for example. Like if we look at Kelleher's scores for Brentford so far this year, I think that's exactly what you would have expected for them. 51, 64, 35, 25. He'll kill you sometimes, he'll make you some other times as well. He's £23 in season at the moment. I think Brentford are really probably going to get relegated, so I'm not really too high on that. But he's got the scores in the book already. You can see what he's doing. Dubravka really does stand out as being one of the best budget picks around. The international scores do skew it ever so slightly. But looking at the fact that he's £16 and Burnley are not conceding many goals. You know, they did lose eventually to Liverpool, but you know what I mean? Like, he almost spawned out here in a big way. He did lose a lot of points for clearances, possession lost and stuff like that. But 28 goalkeeper AA. This guy's a dive and catch machine. Dubravka is very matrix friendly. And if we can even just look at that with Germany, again, 23 AA. Dive and catch, dive and save. Dubravka loves a dive. He loves a dive. And he is the cheapest one here, I think, isn't he? So £16 for him. Kelleher at 23. Lamans at 26. I think these are the main runners and riders for in-season goalkeeper utility. We could still try and be a bit clever and get someone like Darlow while he's playing for Perry, or get Perry while he's injured, or someone like Arifa Balaga waiting for a rotation to happen, so on and so forth. But I think at this stage of the game, we want a credible option, a guy that could make our options better, because goalkeepers, we do just want to juggle them for the number one team, and we're happy to use Robin Rose this week, but as you can see with Pickford, we're not as happy with him. So the more goalkeeper options we have, the better options we have to cycle them to avoid bad fixtures. So the question becomes, is who's more likely to have regular starts and decent enough fixtures? And I personally am very torn. I think Dubravka is one of the ones where it just makes so much sense on cash, but I think Lamans has a really high ceiling potentially, because you would think on paper, and we all know this isn't the reality of the situation, right? But Man United should finish higher than Burnley and Brentford, and you know, Jose Saz here for Wolves. I think these are kind of the bottom end goalkeepers. Like Wolves and Brentford for me are relegated. Leeds I don't think are too far away. Burnley aren't too far away either. So Man United really shouldn't be in that frame, should they? So the idea then is obviously they concede less goals. There's maybe a few more clean sheets that are found, but we know they're so bad defensively that he will be busy. So I think Lamans has got the highest ceiling. I think Dubravka is just the best points per pound imaginable. And Kelleher is maybe just a little bit on the safe side, isn't he? You get a little bit of international utility with him as well as Dubravka. Lamans not as much. No midweek utility between any of them. Do any of them play midweeks, I wonder? Just try to think, even if there's like a rotation situation on the go, like does John play in goals for Forest in Europe and sells, you know, that kind of vibe, you know? I'm not too sure there's anything like that going around, to be honest, but yeah, it was just a thought I would share with you. And maybe if you were to move the price point up, we could have that really nice Venn diagram. Let's go to like 35. Could you get somebody that's playing in Europe? Because we are coming up for the Champions League midweeks. I'm not too sure. There's not... Yeah, like Emi Martinez is back in, isn't he? But him and Marco Bizzo, that's a headache situation I would rather avoid myself. And I think if you're on a budget, you'd probably be smart to do the same. But yeah, that's kind of it, isn't it? They're the only real options I think you see here in this price point that have midweek utility. So I think we'll keep it to that kind of 27 range. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Out of Lamans, Dubravka and Kelleher, who would you be picking up? I'll come back and buy one of these later in the video. Now is your time to leave your comments, right? Because what this then really buys the advantage for isn't just having another goalkeeper to cycle through, but because they are finally an in-season goalkeeper, we can get our classic outfield smasher. Now, you might remember at the very beginning of this strategy, we bought João Pedro Classic for under £6 in pre-season, having him on ice to then use as our classic smasher when this time was going to come. Now, as some of you might remember, we degened and we flapped and we made some trades after we did the initial Road to Glory video, and we no longer have João Pedro, and João Pedro is now no longer around the £5-6 mark, sadly. So, you know, we could just go buy him again. I suppose he's not really that expensive in the grand scheme of things. But what we're better off doing for my money is we are going to look in the classic market. Now, I'm going to remove the price filter because I just want to see genuinely who is the best outfielders and how cheap could they be. We see Erling Haaland is up to £54 unlimited, and yeah, we could just scroll through this for endlessly. But one thing that we do spend a lot of time on the channel doing, and you guys probably spend a lot of time doing as well, is scouting the market. There's some really nice looking cards here, by the way. Salah at £30 is quite interesting looking. Never mind something like Wirtz 26. Eze at a tenner. You know, some really interesting cards here. João Pedro that we mentioned before, to Johnny Reinders under a tenner. But we do a lot of time scouting. So if we look at the unexpected scorers watch list, and this is why it's really good to make watch lists on Sorare of different themes of players that you're watching out for, so that now when we're thinking, who could our classic smasher be, we've got some nice easy filters that can just clean out all the dross of the market, and we can laser focus on the precise players that we want to bring in. And as I click on the unexpected scorers video, Elliot Anderson Classic would be interesting. We already have him, so that's kind of whatever, but a £5 are really good. Calafiore, £2 for a Paqueta. But guys, when I see Jack Grealish at £5.96, that feels like it's going to be really hard to beat for a classic smasher. Mason Mount at 60p, it's just funny to see, isn't it? And there's a lot of different options. Now, when I looked at João Pedro a minute ago, I was kind of semi-reminded that maybe I would want my classic to be a forward. Jack Grealish being a midfielder maybe makes him slightly suboptimal. But if we look at the ones to watch list that we made, like the ones that have made a good start to the season but maybe could kick on further, we've got Yeremy Pino as a classic forward. He's only £3. We've got Ndai. I think he was suspected injured, but he's actually fine, isn't he? Yeah, he played against Villa. I think that's what the worry was around, wasn't it? Classic Dubravka is £6. So we could even just go for Classic Dubravka and maybe try and find another in-season budget guy similar to Morgan Gibbs-White being at £15. But I wonder if we look at these guys in their in-season form, if any of them are that kind of price points. We've bought Harvey Elliott in for that kind of regard, as well as somebody else I've forgotten who. But yeah, our good Forest guys are still priced around 30, and that makes me think that other guys like Grealish are definitely going to be priced very differently. So let's take away the filter here. I want to have a wee look specifically at forward, because that's just a stone that we need to unturn here. Because if we have any difficulties in finding a position of strength in the in-season market or within the gallery that we've got right now, the classic outfielder is the easiest solution, the cheapest solution to basically any of those problems. So is there someone I'm overlooking that could be better, that's in a really good price point, is what I want to double check. Isak at £17 is certainly interesting, but I don't think that will be without its headaches like rotation and midweeks and everything that goes around that. Saka at £18 is certainly interesting, but yeah, I don't really see anyone that really jumps out off the page here. Haaland and Palmer are, you know, Palmer's interesting, isn't he? Gyökeres, I'm not too sure. I do think we need more forward power than midfield, but I think Jack Grealish is just so nailed to be a huge contributor. No midweeks to worry about. He's living his best life at the moment. Maybe, yeah, I think we just need to buy a new in-season forward solution, I think. So I think just have a wee gander at what they cost for a moment, just so we can get a gauge on it, and it's maybe something we scout further down the line. But anyone who's like nice that scores well, yeah, Semenyo's at 34. Pino at 16 isn't bad, but again, Crystal Palace have midweeks. That's a juggling act that if we can avoid it, I think we'll try to do so. And Ndiaye at 14, so that's interesting. So we got the Grealish Classic, and we got the Ndiaye, because that was somebody we wanted pre-season and we never got. So I don't mind returning for that, in fact, because if we got our in-season keeper, our in-season Ndiaye, and our classic Grealish, I think we've got massive potential on our hands. Now, the only somewhat fly in the ointment of this that I'm feeling right now is that for the first game week, this Grealish and Ndiaye move is Liverpool-Everton. So we're not really going to feel a huge impact from it right off the bat. But, you know, I don't really mind that, because I do think that will be playing a little bit of a part in maybe where some of their prices are right now, because the market is quite next game week focused when it comes to any little spikes and dips that might come in demand and in price. But yeah, looking across all the options we've got and the current lay of the land, I think Ndiaye for £14 is very underpriced. And in he comes, Iliman Ndiaye, £14, get in the basket. Jack Grealish for under £6, get in the basket. And now hopefully by this point in the video you guys have left your thoughts and feelings, you've smashed the like button, you've left your thoughts and feelings on what goalkeeper you think would be the best budget pick to bring in. Is it, oh my god, Dubravka's moved in price? No! Oh no, someone sniped him as we were recording the video. Oh, that feels like an omen. So I think the distinct points per pound advantage. Wow, you blink, you miss out, guys. I think the distinct advantage that he was going to give us is now gone. So I think it's all about Sana Lamins, which pains me, because I don't want Man United, you know, but I think he could be sneaky good. Oh, that's really thrown a spanner in the works. I thought that would have been a bit of an easy default just to get Dubravka because he's so cheap and just roll with the punches on that. But yeah, I think we need to make a really tough decision now. Oh, Craig, I can't pay that for Dubravka, I don't think, with his age and everything. I think with Lamins, that's just a much better pickup. And there's maybe a wee market lesson there for us all, I guess. But yeah, let's get him in the basket. Sana Lamins, welcome to the club. So we spent another £43 there. So that's going to take our total spend to 228. So I'm going to change this to £200 RTG. And then we're going to have a new team to add in, which when we get to that, we'll name that depth. Because we should now have two teams of decent quality, decent strength. Now, Lamins is playing Chelsea, so yeah, these depth pieces we've picked in will not pay off in the first game week, it doesn't feel like. But yeah, I think we stick with Rofs, Mukiele, Elliot Anderson, and Doy, and Gibbs White. I think we stick with that. That's fine. That works out very nicely. And I'm going to captain Elliot Anderson because he's in boss mode right now. And then Man United at home to Chelsea. We'll go with that in the second team. We'll use the in-season goalkeeper element here. We'll go with Zinchenko at the moment, away to Burnley. Given the choice of these two midfielders in a different context now a little bit, I'm maybe going to go with the Harvey Elliott midfielder card, because we're not going to need to use the Reinildo as the second option, because what we're going to do is go Ndiaye up front against Liverpool with then the classic Grealish. Or actually no, I'm going to go with this. Yeah, this is the way to do it for me. Now we still have the extras on the bench, so they're still to come. And then of course it's Captain Grealish here, isn't it? Now that feels like a punchy second team. That feels like it's got a real difference made to it. Not really the Lamins versus Chelsea, but the in-season goalkeeper. Is that really any different to the Pickford? But we get Grealish into the fold and we get a slightly, well, I say we'd get a good upgrade in the striker position here. And then the third team, we've only got Pickford left, so that's fine. We can use the Jake O'Brien if we want to pair with him. Alternatively, I do think Reinildo's a better shout anyway. We've got Diarra, who pairs with Reinildo. We've got Chris Wood, who's more nailed than Sancho to feature or play. And then for the final spot, we're looking at Bob or Sancho off the bench. With how good City did in the Manchester derby, and with the fact that both teams will be playing Champions League midweek, I would edge Bob in over Sancho. And we go with Captain Chris Wood against Burnley. So it just feels like a game where he could bag up. And again, I think Chris Wood is quite appropriately tiered now. Now, I do want to change how these are delineated, just so it's quite clear what they are. So I'm going to put this in as a 75 Road to Glory team, and then that means we can quite easily see how this is working out. And then the third team, we'll just call this £50 depth, and then that balances the numbers all out quite nicely. I've rounded up here, which when we do the content, we'll actually keep track of what's been spent. RTG Team 3. Nice. I think that shows very nicely where we're at now. Now that for me, guys, is absolutely cooking. The objective with this, obviously, is to hit the first streak, which we've missed a few weeks in a row now, down to some not great fixtures. But where we're now in the position to do is to really think about climbing up the streaks. We've got a nice different variety of players. We've now brought that little Everton presence in with the little Villa presence. We've got a really big Forest kind of spine, don't we? As well as having like a really strong Sunderland defence play also. So I really like how the team is kind of diagramming together. The classic Grealish, I think, is a mad upgrade and going to make a big difference to the team. And I think, yeah, for lifting the spend where we've lifted it to at the moment, I think we're getting really good points per pound. We're getting some really good options in now. The in-season keeper option earlier in the year just was not practical at all. And now that we're in that position, we can finally now put a bit more strength, a bit more flex into the teams. If you look at La Liga, we've got one spare defender, and with Rafa Marin playing Tottenham Champions League, rested at the weekend there. He's a sketchy character. Mingueza is a bit easier to pick here. Soler came off the bench against Real Madrid and did amazing, so I expect him to start against Betis. And then Saganikov injured, Moreno injured. I think we just go double striker here. We just go Ferran, who Getafe, after Barca are playing midweek Champions League away to Newcastle. I think Ferran probably plays the Getafe match. This probably actually works in quite sweetly, doesn't it? Captain, oh no, I think we'll go Captain King Soler here. He's back in town, back in La Liga where he belongs. So we've got maybe just about the ability to, once we get a bit of success on the go, because I think that's the blockage that we're at the moment for La Liga, is that we need a wee bit of success to come that way. Now, we've not really had that success in the Premier League in terms of the streaks, but I'm very happy with the player ID. I think overall we've got ourselves into good positions, and we're just waiting for a little run to come now, and it will all fall into place essentially. But we've got a spare defender, we've got 3 spare mids, and not really much in 2 forwards. But none of these guys are really reliable enough to think, oh cool, let's get another goalkeeper and put a team out there. And again, we've still got that option of getting in season and classic outfield. So that's just something that we'll be looking down for later on. And I'll also be looking to add in a new arm to the Road to Glory strategy. So much of the feedback from you guys in the content is, Quinny, do this for all the leagues, do this for the Bundesliga, do this for Liga 1, and we will have Bundesliga and Liga 1 Road to Glory arms evolve as the season goes out. I'm just waiting for picking my moments and discovering what a good theme would be to go with both of them, because with the Premier League it's been Premier League on a budget, and that in itself is a bit of a theme. And then with La Liga, it did start off as just 50 quid budget, and then we ended up getting a bit more depth, and because we don't have a depth lineup, we're just rolling. It's just now an 80 quid RTG after me degenning in post transfer window to the Sociedad cards. So to give you a flavour of what I mean, I was just, life is life. You can't spend all your money on football cards, but I was very close to buying a Leipzig jersey edition stack. It was just a wee bit too pricey on the auctions. It went by me, sadly. So, is there I might do fixture attacking, or we might just blah blah blah. We've got some ideas that we'll do for that. Feel free to let me know any suggestions, themes and ideas to run other Road to Glories on in the comments if you want as well. Wish us luck for going after the next streak. I'm really hopeful for it. And I think, not all the fixtures are great, right? But I think that these teams are strong. I'm really happy with where all these teams are at right now, and I can't wait for it to go on a little run. On screen there now, some other stuff that I've made that the YouTube thinks you might enjoy. If you did enjoy the video today, guys, please do hit the like button, hype it up. It does make a big difference to the channel as well. Like, subscribe, share, retweet, all that good stuff, guys. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Stay out of trouble. I'll catch you on the next one.